Welcome into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Manna. Happy Solo Shot Saturday, everyone. Here from the ETV Community Media Center. May the 24th be with you, my fellow Star Wars fans. Jason Stark of The Athletic opened up a can of worms as this is the year of our Lord 2025, which means a quarter century mark since everyone thought the world was going to end in Y2K. And he put out his quarter century team. And this has stirred up a ton of conversation, partially because of the part of the year we're in right now, where it's starting to not be too early anymore, but teams aren't finished products yet between trades, prospects, injuries, etc. And I'll just read you through Jason Stark's team, and then I'll get into mine. His starting rotation: Justin Verlander, who has the most wins and strikeouts by any pitcher since the year 2000. Clayton Kershaw, one of the lowest ERAs since the dead ball era. Roy Halladay, who, in my opinion, is maybe the most polished pitcher I've ever watched. I really enjoyed watching him pitch. Rest in peace. Max Scherzer, who is right up there with Verlander for strikeouts since the year 2000. And Randy Johnson, who, while he did not play a ton into the 2000s, the one kind of argument you could possibly make is Greinke over Johnson. But when you look at the strikeouts alone, Randy Johnson is about 800 strikeouts short of Greinke in about half the amount of games. Randy Johnson was ridiculous. I know he started his career in 1989, but at the beginning of the 2000s, he had those 4 straight Cy Youngs. He had that peak that allowed another player we'll get into in left field to also make Jason Stark's list. So I have no problem with Randy Johnson being there in that 5th starter role over Zach Greinke. I think when you're looking at Halladay, Randy Johnson, and Zach Greinke, those are the 3 names that, depending on who's making the argument, I would be fine with it. But I think Jason Stark got the starting rotation pretty locked down. I think the real conversation and what we've seen a lot of discourse on Twitter and on MLB Network and all over the place is about the actual lineup. And in left field, Barry Lamar Bonds getting his credit. Again, he only played 7 years in the 2000s, but he was one of the most dominant hitters during that 7-year stretch. And just to give you an idea of how great Barry Bonds truly was, he is someone that started his career in the big leagues in 1985 was when he played his first game. That is insane that his peak was great enough to be there in the all quarter century team here. I know if you're talking about the century team, he made that in 1999 at the All-Star game. They announced the century team, and Barry Bonds was on that before these 7 years that he played and cemented his legacy as the home run king. But you have another peak guy in right field, as he has Aaron Judge, who, let's be real, he's probably the best hitter in baseball right now. And a man named Shohei Ohtani exists. He's right there, but Aaron Judge is on another level. He's having a Judge-esque, having a Bonds-esque run right now for the Yankees. And these are 2 peak guys. Again, both of them about 7 seasons played here in the 2000s, give or take. Judge has, I think, 8 now. What are you going to say about this amount of time? Is it too little? Do you give it to guys like Ichiro, who amassed over 3,000 hits during the 2000s, an MVP? Does that body of work surpass a 7-year stretch of a Judge or a Bonds? Of Vladimir Guerrero Sr., who was one of my favorite players growing up. He has a ton of RBIs and hits and everything since the 2000s and cemented his Hall of Fame career during the decade. So it's very, very interesting to talk about the corner outfielders. the one thing that's been consistent with everybody's team that's been coming out that I've seen is Mike Trout in center field. Mike Trout had the opportunity to go down as one of the greatest baseball players that ever lived. Some people were saying he had the argument to be the best. Mike Trout, at his peak of his powers, was one of the best baseball players I've ever seen. He still is pushing out there and trying to accumulate some career stats here at the end, but he's proven everything he needed to prove in terms of the 3 MVP awards, in terms of the WAR. He is one of the best hitters of the last 25 years, and putting him in center field was a lock. So the corner outfield is where you can get into some debate. The peaks of Bonds and Judge are otherworldly. They really are. But then you have guys that flat out raked during the from 2000 to present, whether that be Carlos Beltran, who I think will be in the Hall of Fame just next season, the 7th most hits since 2000. He's a switch hitter, 400 home runs. It's interesting when you have those discussions of the complete body of work of a Carlos Beltran, Ichiro Suzuki, a Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Sr., is that enough to unearth the primes of Bonds and Judge? I kind of just think it depends on how you are as a baseball fan. Are you more of a peak appreciator, or are you more of a longevity appreciator? Now, I know Bonds has longevity stats from pre-2000, and Judge from post-2025 is going to have accumulating stats. But we have to break it off right here from 2000 to 2025. I think it's hard to make the argument, as great as Ichiro and Vladimir Guerrero and Carlos Beltran were. I think that's 3 Hall of Famers there you're talking about, that Bonds and Judge's peaks are good enough to justify their inclusion on this list. The infield, I think, is where I've seen most of the discourse. And his infield, left to right: Adrian Beltre, Derek Jeter, Jose Altuve, and Albert Pujols. I think the one that has had very little debate is Albert Pujols at first base. I'm extremely biased here. As you all know, Albert Pujols is my favorite baseball player that I've ever watched. He's part of the reason I fell in love with the game as a young child at around 7 years old. His swing was so sweet. He was at the height of his powers. And when you look at what he did, which is all in this era of 2000 to 2025, he has the most hits of any player since the year 2000, 3,384, which is over 200 more than the next closest in Miguel Cabrera. That's a very good season, 200 hits. He has the most home runs, 703 home runs since the year 2000, while both Barry Bonds and Alex Rodriguez hit their 600th and 700th career home runs, respectively. In this era, Pujols is the only one that accumulated all of those home run milestones in this decade. So, and you look at RBIs, which is, I think, the thing that gets overlooked the most in Albert Pujols' career: 2,218 career RBIs. That is just as exclusive of club as 700 home runs. To me, if you're able to accumulate over 1,000 RBIs in your career, whether that's 10 years of 100 or 15 years of 75, that's a really good number with how just daunting the marathon of a baseball season is. So Albert Pujols, to me, a lock at first base. And even when you project out the next 75 years, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to see it. Being born in 1999 myself, I'd have to be 100 to see who they name to the next century team. I'd be very surprised if Albert Pujols is not included on that century team as one of the 2 or 3 first baseman DH types on that roster, because 700 home runs and 2,000 RBIs is something we're not going to see ever again. In my humble opinion, just not with the way the game's played and the approach to pair with 3,000 hits, especially. Second base is kind of up for a debate. Jose Altuve, I know he has the trash can scandal, but he's won 3 batting championships and an MVP, and already over 2,000 career hits. He's a guy that I think has the potential to get to 3,000 career hits at the end of his career. I know he's moved off second base now, and there's some people that are talking about Chase Utley for WAR reasons as the best second baseman from 2000 to 2025. It's an interesting debate. I personally can't go there. And then there's Robinson Cano, another guy who has the steroid problem. But Robinson Cano, when you look at the player since 2000, 10th most RBIs since the year 2000, 1,306. As a second baseman, he was very, very good power-wise and hits as well. Robinson Cano, 6 all-time since 2000 in hits, 2,639 hits. Now, steroids, suspension versus trash can scandal, which is worse, which is better. I know Robinson Cano doesn't have an MVP. I know he only has 1 World Series to Altuve's 2 in that time. But I think there's a real argument there for Robinson Cano, who, if he didn't use steroids, I think would have been a first ballot Hall of Fame lock type of player. And he's right up there. And so I personally would have Robinson Cano as my second baseman. While I would not elect Robinson Cano to the Hall of Fame because of his proven steroid thing, I think when you're talking quarter century team, decade team, century team, you have to just look at the numbers and say who was the best during that era. And Robinson Cano, to me, I don't think Altuve has passed him yet. I do think when Altuve has hung it up and everything is all said and done, that Altuve's career will be comparable, if not better, than Cano's. But I think if you're just looking from 2000 to 2025, Robinson Cano is my second baseman. Now, the interesting thing here is at shortstop. So Derek Jeter got selected as a shortstop. He is 6th all-time in hits. He is 5th all-time since 2000 with 2,658 hits, just about 20 ahead of Robinson Cano since the decade started. And the captain, obviously one of the most respected players of all time, one of the most popular players of my lifetime. Again, the steroid allegations will keep me from not giving the honor of the Hall of Fame. But when you're looking at the best players since 2000, Alex Rodriguez, 13th in hits, 2,324. So about a 300 hit difference. And that's with the multiple suspensions that he served. Home runs since 2000. Alex Rodriguez is second to Albert Pujols with 548. RBIs since the year 2000. Alex Rodriguez is 4th with 1,623 RBIs. He's a guy that, because of those steroid allegations, fell just short of both 2,000 RBIs as well as 700 home runs for his career. Now, some of that was before 2000, but I'm talking just since 2000. Derek Jeter, phenomenal player, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, one of the greatest shortstops of all time. But from 2000 to 2025, give me Alex Rodriguez as short. I know some people have been making the arguments for that as well. To me, I don't know how you give Bonds his 7-year peak and Judge's 7-year peak in the outfield. I know one of them has the looming of steroids and one doesn't. But you don't look at the full picture when you're comparing other guys. Alex Rodriguez, Robinson Cano, up the middle for me. Third base is super interesting because Adrian Beltre, RBIs, 5th most since 2000, 1,618. Adrian Beltre, 7th most home runs since the year 2000, 455 home runs. This is another guy that played a few years before the turn of the century. And hits, Adrian Beltre. Fourth most hits since 2000, 2,976 hits. There's been a lot of people arguing for Chipper Jones over Adrian Beltre. Now, Chipper Jones' MVP season, as well as his championship and some of his prime seasons, came before 2000. I think Adrian Beltre's prime seasons pretty much all came post 2000. So I personally would go with Adrian Beltre over Chipper Jones. But there's a man that's been getting left off, and I think he's the biggest snub from Jason Stark's list that I'm putting at third base, and that's Miguel Cabrera. Second most hits since 2000, 3,174. Fourth most home runs, 511 since the year 2000. And if you're looking at RBIs, look no further than second to Albert Pujols, 1,881 RBIs since the year 2000. I know he was most of his career at the back half, he was first base DH, but he did play third base in Miami, and he did play some third base for the Tigers. So I think he played enough to qualify. And I think as great as Adrian Beltre is, as great as shout out Nolan Arenado is defensively, as great as Chipper Jones was post 2000, none of them you're taking over Miguel Cabrera. In that 25-year stretch I'm talking about, he became one of 8 players with over 3,000 hits and over 500 home runs. So is Alex Rodriguez. So is Albert Pujols. And the biggest thing that I haven't been seeing brought up is that Miguel Cabrera won the Triple Crown in 2012. It was the first Triple Crown since Carl Yastrzemski in 1967. So if you go back a couple quarter-century teams, that's when you can get the last Triple Crown hitter. And I could not find a better place for Miguel Cabrera than at the hot corner for my all-century team. So from left to right for me, Miguel Cabrera, Alex Rodriguez, Robinson Cano, and Albert Pujols. So 3 out of 4 different than Mr. Stark. The DH spot, a lot of people have been already giving it to Shohei Ohtani. And I think with the 50-50 season and with the just allure of how great he has been and the likelihood that most of his prime seasons will have been pre-2025, I completely understand people doing that because they did the same thing with Bonds and Judge over the Vladimir Guerreros, the Ichiro Suzukis, the Carlos Beltrans of the world. David Ortiz was Jason Stark's pick. To me, he is the pick as well. He's the greatest DH of all time thus far. Shohei Ohtani has another 8 years in Hollywood to try to challenge him. Since 2000, third most RBI, 1,716 for Big Papi. Most home runs since 2000, third to Pujols and Rodriguez, 531 home runs since the year 2000. And in hits, 10th, 2,379 hits. He's 9 hits away from 9th. Thanks, Mr. Nick Markakis. Shout out Will, listener of the show. David Ortiz broke the curse in Boston, brought them 3 championships, one of the most clutch hitters to ever live. I'm fine with David Ortiz being the DH. So I agree with Mr. Stark, but I completely understand those that are putting Shohei Ohtani in there already. It's a very, very fun exercise. And then the catcher spot, they have Yadier Molina, who I think traditionally speaking, in terms of how many games he caught and how great he was defensively, that I have no problem with Yadier Molina. Some people are already making the argument for Buster Posey, again, a peak guy that won the Rookie of the Year, the batting title, the World Series, caught the no-hitters, the MVP. He was fantastic. I think Joe Mauer deserves some respect in that vein as well, with the batting titles, the MVP, everything. So those are the 3 guys that you can pick. Me personally, I kind of want to go with Joe Mauer, and I know that's not the popular pick. I know Yadier Molina caught way more games. I know Buster Posey has way more winning accolades. But Joe Mauer, at the peak of his powers, if you're talking peak case at the catcher position, he was fantastic. And the winning of the 3 batting titles when there's only been 7 such instances of a catcher ever, 3 times more than Buster Posey, 3 more than Yadier Molina ever won. I completely could make the argument for Joe Mauer. And I think the Hall of Fame spoke very highly of him when he got in first ballot. The Rule of 2000, sticking around, a number 1 overall pick. He showed that a bigger athletic guy can really dominate back there as a catcher. Joe Mauer walked so Buster Posey could run to those championships, and I'm very, very big fan of Joe Mauer. So I personally would have Joe Mauer as my catcher, but I think any of those 3 options are fine. It's pick your flavor. So my quarter century team rotation, I would leave the same. Justin Verlander, Clayton Kershaw, Roy Halladay, Max Scherzer, Randy Johnson. Outfield, same for me. Barry Bonds, Mike Trout, Aaron Judge. Honorable mentions to Beltran, Guerrero, and Ichiro Suzuki. Left to right, Miguel Cabrera, Alex Rodriguez, Robinson Cano, and Albert Pujols. Got Joe Mauer behind the dish, and David Ortiz batting designated hitter. Really fun exercise. Leave your quarter century team in the comments below. I'd love to hear your arguments. It's a really fun discourse, and it really, as someone who is 25 turning 26 this year, it's the best players of my lifetime. And I think it's a really, really fun discussion to have. Obviously, Manny Ramirez and some different guys as well are in that conversation, but it's very, very tough to make the quarter century team because you're not just talking about a decade in time. You're talking about 25 years going on to 50, 100-year teams as well. Speaking of timing, this today marks the third of the way through of the season for most teams in Major League Baseball. When you look across the majors, there are some surprises. There are some things that are not shocking at all. Just running through the standings, the Yankees have a 5-game lead in the AL East. To a lot of people, that's not surprising. Right behind them are the pseudo 500 Red Sox, Blue Jays, and Rays, all kind of clumped together. The Baltimore Orioles completely out of it. One of my biggest misses so far this season. The Detroit Tigers have a 4-game lead in the AL Central, a big miss of mine as well, not including the Tigers in my playoff picture. Cleveland and Minnesota, the 2 teams I had making the playoffs, are 4 games back. Kansas City, who a lot of people had winning the division this year, is 5 games back. White Sox out of it as people expected. The Seattle Mariners have a 3.5-game lead on the Houston Astros right now. I was not expecting it to be like this, especially with George Kirby missing a big chunk at the beginning of the season. He's back now. It's going to be interesting. I think that's a 2-team race there. The Angels are 4 games back with an 8-game winning streak. Good for them. They're better than people expected. The Rangers are a little bit worse than people expected, just below 500, 5 games back. And the Athletics have a 10-game losing streak that I hope they can snap. 22-30. They're a fun team. Phillies are up in the NL East. 3 games on the Mets, 8.5 on the Braves. The Nationals and Marlins are double digits out of it. Chicago Cubs are finally reaching their potential. They are who I thought they would be last season. 31-20 record, which I was feeling good about Milwaukee repeating. They're 6.5 games back in the teams between them. St. Louis, 28-23 record, 3 games back. And the Cincinnati Reds, 2 games under 500 under Terry Francona, 6.5 games back, same record as the Brewers. Pirates, they're donezo, 13.5 games back. In the NL West, which is just a gauntlet of a division, Dodgers, 32-19. The Giants are one of 4 teams in Major League Baseball with 30 wins, and they're 2 games back in their own division. The Padres have 28 wins. They're 3 games back. The Diamondbacks are over 500, 6 games back. The Rockies finally got their 9th win. We are holding out hope. I'm calling it. This will be the weekend that they hit double digits. They will win a game this weekend and have 10 wins before June. Please. Your fans are begging. Oh, man. But that is the third of the way checkpoint through the Major League Baseball season. There's some, like I said, there's a lot of teams between calling up prospects, Red Sox, making trades, injuries. Things will change the next 2/3 of the way. It's a marathon of a season. I always try to remind people of that. But that is where we are at right now. There's certain things I predicted that look really good. There's certain things that look okay. There's certain things that look just outright wrong. But I can't wait to follow the next 2/3 of this Major League Baseball season with all of you and see how many of those things flip the script and how many of those things stay status quo. Speaking of status quo, the Pirates, they ain't trying, man. And there's been rumors floated out there. There's been big discussions lately about would they be open to trading Paul Skeens, which started from ESPN's Jeff Passan, who is one of the most respected writers in the game, talking about would it be in their best interest to trade Paul Skeens. We just saw what the Red Sox gave up for Garrett Crochet, who has the same kind of deal, 1 year of starting in the big leagues under his belt, and they were able to get 2 top 100 prospects and 2 quality pieces. Chase Mydroth is a top 10 rookie in WAR in baseball this year for them, as well as Winkelman Gonzalez, who will pitch some innings for them this year. So 4 big league ready players for one Garrett Crochet. And Garrett Crochet, I love him. It's probably going to be the new City Connect Green Monster jersey that I get. But he does not sell jerseys. He does not put butts in seats like Paul Skeens does. Paul Skeens is next level, just showtime, box office, big time player. And it's rare for a pitcher to be that. As great as those pitchers from the All-Century team I talked about were. Verlander, Kershaw, Randy Johnson. Very few of them were box office can't miss, selling jerseys out like crazy. Randy Johnson's probably the only one of those 5 guys who was that big of a deal during the peak of his powers. So fundamentally, the Pirates would not be able to afford Paul Skeens by the time he's done with arbitration. But it's already came out through John Heyman that the Pirates are committed to building around Skeens, and they do not trade superstars after 1 year of big league control. Essentially what that means is they're going the Angels route. They are saying that we're making way more money from keeping Skeens on this team than we would be for trading him for quality depth and upside pieces. And with Jared Jones undergoing Tommy John, with Mitch Keller not pitching up to an all-star caliber level, like the contract that they gave him would suppose. The offense outside of O'Neal Cruz being dreadful. They don't see they're like, if we trade Paul Skeens, nobody's going to come to these games, even if we hit on 2 or 3 of the 4, 5, 6 prospects we get back from another team. But when you're looking at the major leagues, if I'm the Baltimore Orioles, you've been looking to trade for a pitcher, and you've had the opportunity to make a team an offer that they can't refuse. How do the Baltimore Orioles not offer the farm for Paul Skeens? Give them like 5 guys who all, have shown major league success or have been highly rated prospects to fill out their lineup. Give them everyday at bats. That's the fit that I keep just seeing in my mind. I know the Baltimore Orioles are buried in the standings right now. They're not going to make the playoffs this year, but they need a frontline starter. They have way too many quadruple A hitters and guys that need regular at bats and aren't getting them. Some of the guys that are getting regular at bats don't deserve them. So that's where I'm kind of at with Paul Skeens. I don't expect him to be traded yet. Now, once he starts not being cheap anymore, it'll be interesting. But I think the White Sox, as a poverty franchise, made the right move, because as great as Garrett Crochet was last year, he hasn't had a major surgery in the big leagues. Knock on wood. It happens to most of them as pitchers with high velocity. If Paul Skeens has a major injury, you're not going to be able to get the kind of package you would if you trade him now. So that's really what it is the team worried about the jersey sales and the ticket sales when he starts and the ad revenue he brings, or are they worried about making the best move for where their team currently is? Because they have 2 ways to go, essentially. They're gonna stay status quo right now, but there's 2 ways to go. There's to trade him for a haul of people to fill out your lineup and maybe backfill your rotation with a spot or two. Or you can spend money, which they have historically not done, and bring in enough pieces to build around Paul Skeens to go forward. So it'll be really interesting to see what the Pirates have in store. But Skeens is staying put for now, as the cash cow that he is too good for a struggling franchise to turn down. Here at the Solo Shot Sports Podcast, we had to throw back down the third base line to this day in baseball history. There's quite a bit to pick from here on May 24th throughout baseball history, all the way back to the turn of the 19th century. But on this date in 1935, there was a historic event. It was the first night game ever played in Major League history at Crosley Field. Tremendous game-changing move. 25,000 fans were in attendance. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt pushes a button in the White House, and the lights turn on at Crosley Field simultaneously. I'm not sure how well they were able to do the broadcasting and the tape delays back then, but that's the story as it goes. And it was a competitive game. It was a 2-1 victory for the home Reds. The first hitter was Lou Choiza, second baseman for the Phillies, facing off against Paul Derringer, who went a complete game, 6 hit, 1 run, 3 strikeout performance. The Phillies, Joe Bowman got the start and the loss. 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 runs, a walk, and a strikeout. Jim Bolivin came in relief. And it was just a really impressive moment in history that changed the game, essentially, because allowing fans after work to catch a game under the lights, it was a whole new experience for America's pastime. And really, really cool to see that in 1935, the ball started rolling on making this a experience for any day of the week to be able to check out, to go out for a night at the ballpark. So really, really fun there. And rounding out the show here, the Dodgers have been making some moves. They've been moving on from some long tenured players in the Dave Roberts era. Both Austin Barnes as well as Chris Taylor have been designated for assignment, World Series champions. They haven't been hitting the last couple of years. The defensive versatility of Chris Taylor kept him around. Great clubhouse guy, can play corner outfield spots, can play third, short, second in a pinch. And he was very valuable, a great trade for the Dodgers that helped turn them into this juggernaut that they are slowly but surely. They bring up top prospect Dalton Rushing to do the catching, and the Chris Taylor move allows them to be flexible with infielders and outfielders. Hai-Song Kim, their free agent signing, has been doing a great job, so it leaves him on the big league roster as a guy that can play middle infield for them. So that's why the Dodgers continue to be a class act in baseball, is they do things the right way. They're willing to move on. They're willing to adjust when things aren't going their way. They have not just one plan, but they have backup and contingencies all the way down, probably to like letter Q. The Dodgers are just so well run, and they're willing to make these moves to improve the baseball team when a lot of other teams are so just hinged on one decision, one player, one move for their entire season to work out. And it's a marathon of a season. I've said that 27 times during this episode. You need to have those other plans. I appreciate each and every one of you for spending your Solo Shot Saturday with me. Make sure that you like the video, subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, leave me a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and share the show with a friend who loves the game of baseball as much as the rest of us. Have a tremendous Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe out there. I know it's a weekend of a lot of grills and parties, but it's truly a weekend to remember those in the armed forces that gave up the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. Make sure that you hug a veteran, visit past veterans' graves, and treat the holiday with the respect it deserves. I'm Dom Manna, and I'll see you guys next week.